Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the MAP. My name is Andy Bernstein. What is the MAP? The MAP stands for the Mental Health and Addiction Podcast. We started the show back in December of 2019 with the hope of bringing interesting discussions, guests, and information from the world of addiction and mental health. Our goal for the show is to open up a dialogue and have a forum about mental health and addiction challenges. Actually, 1 in 5 people in this country have mental illness, and at last count, 77 people overdosed in 2019. This is something that affects our country in a massive way, and having real conversation about it is bringing it to the forefront. So let's meet our panel. Joining us, as always, is Chris Perry Long. Who are you, Chris? Tell us about yourself.
So my name is Chris Perry Long. I am a mom of kids that are in recovery. So today's a good day. I work for Aware Recovery, which is an in-home care service. It's 365 days of family education and recovery work for your loved one. And I love the MAP.
We love the MAP, and we'll get into a little more, but as we go. But let's also meet Willie Drinkwater. Willie is going to join us now on a regular basis. And Willie, who are you? Not existentially.
That's a lifelong task, Andy. Who
I want to know
what am I doing
you.
Here?
Who
All the
you?
existential questions. Where's Jean-Paul Sartre when you need him? You know what I'm saying, man? I'm a person in long-term recovery of 34 years. I've been working in the field of addiction for more than 30 years now. Addiction and mental health, actually. I'm an educator for UMass Boston in the Addiction Counseling Education Program. My experience in mental health addiction, 15 out of my 30 years was doing inpatient lock unit psych addiction. And then the rest, I've worked in all the modalities. IOP, PHPs, freestanding detoxes. Somerville Hospital, I was on the last crew of the detox there before they closed. Pretty much street action with the People's Republic of Cambridge over in Central Square in the old days, Albany Street Shelter and stuff. I was actually like where Rick stayed on the comedy scene in early 1990s when I split off and started to go into human services because basically I wanted to drop a digit off my income, so I went into human services, so
there you go. We're getting a lot of yucks right now. That's cool. And thank you, Willie. As for me, I've spent the last 3 years working in the addiction and mental health world from the media side. I had no idea how I got here, but I actually created an addiction education show called Crosscheck Radio with NHL great Kevin Stevens, and we did shows for a long time, and we had a lot of different guests, everybody from Chuck Negron from Three Dog Night, to Mark Recchi with the Bruins. We had a ton of guests, and so the idea was to bring that conversation to light from people, and then also experts who are in the field who also talked about kind of their world. And so we tried to provide a real education for people. So having said that, unfortunately or sadly, Kimberly, who was part of our original crew, has moved on to greener pastures, and she decided to start kind of different things in her own life. So it's the three of us now, and then we're going to meet our guest, Rick Jenkins from the Boston Comedy Studio. I'm sorry.
Yeah, studio.
In a minute. Sorry about that. But before we get started with Rick, I wanted to highlight a quick article that came out yesterday, or September 1st, which was yesterday, called, it was in the Huffington Post and on Yahoo, "The Foods to Eat for Better Mental Health." And experts are warning that the lingering effect of the coronavirus obviously causes a mental health crisis. And they're talking about food, and using food is a dangerous substitute for medicine. And eating for your brain health can help ease the impact of anxiety, depression, and even post-traumatic stress. And, obviously, eating out, and people are trying, or not eating out, but ordering takeout and things like that, almost as comfort food, is causes more stress and anxiety. So what they're saying is, and you guys can look up the article, but what they're saying is things like prebiotics and probiotics are something good for mental health. And that includes kimchi, yogurt, sauerkraut, pickled vegetables, real fun stuff. And then they also talk about, obviously, fruits and vegetables are good. And spices is something else. And but then the foods that can hurt mental health are fried foods, processed foods, trans fats, nitrates, and foods high in salt. And of course, refined sugars, but everybody knows that. So, as someone who suffers from anxiety and depression at times, food almost becomes comforting. So I found this helpful, to at least as a reminder to continue worrying about my state of mind during this pandemic. So I'm throwing it out to you guys.
I mean, the one food I eat at least a couple of times a week, and you may think I'm crazy, are sardines. Sardines are a superfood. They have it's amazing if you look at sardines.
That's because you're old. That's because you're old.
Older, not old. I don't wear white New Balance sneakers. Thanks anyway. They don't have Velcro. You know what I'm saying, man? I've got Saucony's product placement. Saucony's, they're blue, man.
All right, but
sardines are good because anchovies are good because of the fact that they'll never contain mercury, because what they eat is photoplankton.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about mercury as far as they go. But sardines on saltine crackers, what a delightful sandwich.
Yeah, I mean, whatever gets you through the night. But here's the thing. I think that I'm trying to be funny. We got a guy from a comedy.
I just threw up in my mouth. There's nothing funny about sardines.
Oh, sardines are great,
I love
man.
fish, but they need to fillet them and saute them, and no.
What's your go-to during the pandemic, Chris?
Oh.
Your food-wise. Food-wise.
I don't know. I've been experimenting. I bought a cookbook from some Gen woman and been making a recipe, and they're really good, and I never go and repeat the recipe. So I hate when you do that. You make something and it's absolutely delicious, and you're like, oh, and then you go and you make something else and it's absolutely delicious, and then you can't remember because you have CRS, and the story goes on. I don't know. I mean, I like everything.
Do you find yourself eating out of anxiety or fear at all?
Sometimes, but I try to derail that. I do find myself snacking more because I'm home and there's nothing else to do.
Cheez-Its.
Yeah, Cheez-Its and Twizzlers. It's just
Ben and Jerry's.
But it's interesting, that diet. I wanted to bring that up because I wanted to provide some kind of resource and information.
Right.
I think a lot of it's already common sense, but we're throwing it out there. All right.
Yeah. Hey, did anybody watch 16 and in Recovery last night on MTV?
No.
No, that's the one from the North Shore Recovery High School, right?
Yeah.
Oh. There's some guy on LinkedIn that came out and slammed them too. I don't know if you saw the LinkedIn. They were talking about the show on LinkedIn. They were talking about the show coming up on LinkedIn, and there was a social worker out there that came out and just slammed them for it and stuff. If you get a chance, take a look at it.
I'll have to find it. I mean, I my heart hurts because it's very real. It's very, it's there's no sugarcoating it. There's a girl that they did, Alda, I think her name is, on the show, and she suffers from depression. And from the mouths of Babe, she explained depression. And, it really gave me goosebumps, because for people that maybe don't necessarily understand or think they understand depression and anxiety and how it parallels with why people use substances, this kid was spot on. It was unedited, raw, real material. And, and they're following a couple of kids every week. It's only 4 weeks. And the young man, Sam, so he woke up one day and he didn't feel worthless. He felt like he didn't want to burden anybody.
And so he went missing. And, you know, it shows the parents putting his picture on telephone poles because he's missing. And the mom got up, and it's like, again, the mom got up, and sorry, Andy, I didn't give you any heads up on this one, but the mom got up and she's got the poster of her son. And she said, you know, I don't want to be that mom that holds the poster at the vigils because my child has been lost, you know, but it was really good. I mean, it's real. There's no sugarcoating it. It's not being.
Let me tell you just to chime in, what I've really, and we're going to hear from Rick Jenkins, who's going to help us make us feel better to talk about comedy. But in the meantime, what I'll say is that what really has bummed me out is, I'm finding myself taking on other people's stuff right now. And I have to remind myself, my life's good, right? But I always feel bad, right? So I'm taking on other people's stuff. I worry about, friends who are not in a great place. And I remind myself, like, that's theirs, right? Mine is, my life is not, I don't need to feel bad or guilty or things like that. I should be grateful for what I have, in my life. And I find myself like getting caught up in people's stuff all the time. And it causes me to get depressed and anxiety. And as a matter of fact, last night, just quick story, my sister calls always with the tale of woe, always. And I said to her, I don't want to hear about your ex-husband before bedtime. And she keeps going on and on. I go, Nan, I don't want to hear about your husband before bedtime. Keeps going on and on. I said, Nan, I don't want to hear about your husband. Finally, she hung up. And I felt so good about it that I actually said, leave me, I got to take care of me. So that's my quick story. How about that?
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, right?
You need to get that stuff out.
All right. The article, going back to the article, it's The Foods to Eat for Better Mental Health. Mm-hmm. It's by Erica Sweeney. It was in HuffPost Live on September 1st. And hopefully we can post the article on our Facebook page.
Yeah. Or put it in the chat.
Mike, can we put it in the chat? Anyway, all right.
I don't know, Rick, the woman's name was Sweeney. I don't know if we can trust her. What do you think? You think she's related to Steve? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good segue.
Then she's okay in the recovery community.
That's it, man.
Hey, Willie, who's the other guy in the box? Who's the man in the box?
The man in the box, Rick. God, the Boston comedy scene. I mean, they just had a reunion not too long. I think it was a virtual reunion of the Ting Ho crew. Is that true, Rick and stuff?
Yeah. Jimmy Tingle put it together.
He's cool. All right, so tell us who you are, Rick. Besides just sitting there in the box.
Man, the legend. The man, the legend.
Unattended.
Yeah, I'm the patient today.
I love it.
I moved to Boston in 1986 and started doing stand-up comedy, and that's where I ran into Willie. And we've known each other for decades.
Yeah.
And I've gone into recovery. I went into outpatient about 2 years ago, and have been struggling a little bit back and forth since then. I've been sober for about 4 or 5 months now in a row, doing meetings and group and naltrexone. And now with the pandemic, it's really, March 1st, my wife and I split, and March 19th, my business was closed by the state.
Yeah.
So you've had a lot going on, obviously.
Yeah. So we're in that, in that weird spot now. And thank you guys. I saw the show last week, and I just reached out to Willie and said, fan letter, great job, terrific. And he asked me on. And I'm always, much like you, I'm always going back and forth between that thing of, should I be helping myself by being of service to others and staying on the phone with her? Or should I be taking care of myself and saying, I need to push you away?
It's always you first, my friend. Always you first. Because without you, we got nothing.
Yeah. If I'm not taking care of me, I can't be available for
I take care of her. Well, it's funny because then she goes, should I provide, I could use some support. I'm like, I've helped you.
professional support,
I've
Yeah.
given you,
unbiased support. Right.
I've helped her incredible between,
Yeah.
financial and emotional support on a regular basis. So,
Mhm.
but I'm stressed,
Yeah.
right? And I've got anxiety. So I can't, you get close to your family member and you want to
Mhm.
help them. And it's like, when do you draw the line? So, so tell us about, because, obviously comedy is, you and Willie both kind of believe in comedy as a way to heal
Mhm.
souls, Willie with addiction. But tell us
Mhm.
about kind of what's going on in the comedy scene out there from a, from a, I guess, tell us about like how, what's going on in comedy with the current comics and kind of, I know so many of them are in recovery now. A
Yeah.
lot of the older guys.
Yeah. And I really have to give credit to guys like Willie and Jimmy Tingle and Julie Barr. There were Jack Lynch. There were a number of comedians back
George
in the
Mack.
80s.
Yeah.
George Mack. Yeah. Joey Carroll.
Yeah.
I know Joey. He's a good guy. Good guy.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a good core group of about half a dozen to a dozen people that got sober and clean in the early or late 80s.
Okay.
And they've really sort of been the touchstone that the rest of the community has been known to be able to reach out to.
Okay.
And say, hey, I'm having some trouble. Because in that business, it's really difficult. You are in a bar every single night.
I mean, the old days, Rick, too.
Yeah.
I mean, Stitch's Comedy Club. You could walk out of the Stitch's Comedy Club was in the Paradise for people out there
Yeah.
that aren't aware of it. But you could walk right out on Com Ave. You could score a few 8-balls and walk right back into the club again. I mean, it was, and in the old days, you might have 2 or 3 shows. People would coke, go on stage, come off stage, drink their way down. Do coke, go on stage, come off stage, drink their way down. And then looking back now, it's kind of funny. But the last one to do coke was called the Designated Driver. I mean, and you prayed they got you home before they crashed.
Yes, Stitches had a cooler of beer in the dressing room. So as soon as you came off stage, you stepped from the stage into the room and grabbed a beer. And it's legendary. But at Nick's, you could actually get paid in coke.
Yeah.
At the end of the week, they would say,
there was a club on the North. There was a club on the North Shore that I used to. I used to be involved with. And Kevin Knox and the whole whacked out crew, man. They paid you in coke.
They would say, all right, you made $1,100 this week.
Right.
Here's $1,100 worth of coke. How much of it do you want?
Yeah.
And someone would go, all right, give me half and half.
It was a currency.
So so a young guy with no expenses or anything, would, all right, go half and half, and give me $500. I'll live on that. Where they got into trouble was the clubs were reporting that as paid income.
Oh yeah. No,
so all these comics, all of a sudden, after 4 or 5 years, the IRS says, hey, this club said they paid you $1,100. Where's the taxes on it? And you can't go to the IRS and say, that's coke money. That's coke. That doesn't count.
Is there a lot of pressure on the scene for people to use?
Well, I think it's with Rick can back me up on this, I think too. But it got to a certain point in the late 90s where if you were a young comic coming on the scene, you had a manager, you had an accountant. I mean, you were really looking at it as a business where, the 80s, we were out of our minds. It was just wild.
Let me ask you guys a question. Let me ask you something. That's my Baltimore accent. But let me ask you a question.
Way south.
What exactly? What is the psyche of a comic, right? Because I always try to understand this. Like, are comics depressed people in a sense that have to get out and use their platform to kind of make light or find humor in sadness?
Well, I honestly don't think it's any different than the population in general. That's what Seinfeld says. There's lots of depressed dentists. No one talks about, oh, he's such a happy dentist, and then he gets depressed.
Right.
It's just much more poetic with comedians. The ones who make it tend to be the ones, like Willie was saying, the ones who are really focused, the ones who get a manager. Joe Rogan was really, really focused. He did not. Yeah, he wasn't drinking. He wasn't drugging. He was focused on having a career. And that next generation that came up, all of a sudden, comedy could be a career. There could be a future to it. Right. Whereas these 80 comedians, it was what's happening tonight.
Yeah.
Right. So they treat it more as a professional situation. I like what Jimmy Tingle's doing with his creating his virtual, or not virtual, but he was doing charitable
Humor for humanity.
Yeah. I mean, how much is the point of humor right now, or the idea of humor as a way to heal anxiety? Do you think this is, how do you find a way to laugh right now? How do you find humor? And I find, me personally, everything's funny to me. Everything is funny usually, because I try to see the light side of things and laugh at them. But like, how do you guys, what are your suggestions to people out there to find humor in this current
I mean,
situation?
among my favorite of, one of my personal favorites was Carl and the Observationalist. So I just try to observe things and then make a comment on them. I mean, just observationalist stuff that I find amusing.
Yeah. In a lot of cases, humor is perspective. Stepping back and saying, hey, it's not that big a deal. Can you believe we took that seriously?
Yeah.
Right.
That's you're always going back and forth. Boy, I'm really special. Boy, I'm not special at all.
Right.
And humor is that, well, I'm not that special. This stuff happens.
Now,
the way that you survive as a stand-up too is, you think one of two ways. The first one was, I was great, the audience loved me, and the second one is, I was great, the audience sucked. Your ego couldn't take that. Couldn't stand that 300 people thought you sucked. So it was, I was great, they loved me. I was great, they sucked.
Yeah. There is a sense of isolation too. I was reading Springsteen's autobiography, and he talks
isn't that great?
he talks about being a young guy and going into town and saying, I'm going to go in and I'm going to, dominate your bar, and I'm going to kill, and I'm going to drink all your beer and sleep with all your women and be gone the next day. When you're a young guy, that's, all the substances are there, and it's like, I can drink anyone under the table. There's a real machismo to that feeling of going on the road and just walking into a strange town and doing all the drugs they got.
Well, the reason, go ahead.
Gunslinger man mentality.
I have a friend that's a whatever that band, a cover band, is a cover band, and
Surreal Neil Diamond.
no, 36 Red.
Okay.
Anyway, I live in Foxboro, and so we have the Twitter Center, or whatever it is, Great Woods, or whatever it is now. I don't.
It's always changing.
Yeah, whatever it is, down the street, and then we also have Gillette, and so there's a bar at Patriots Place. No, it's no longer there. It has since then closed. But the owner, or the name of the singer, I'm not going to say, had played in Mansfield and then came over to the bar later that night to sing Red Solo Cup. And his daughter also is a singer, and she came. Now she was like straight, and he was trashed. So now you go from a couple thousand people to a couple hundred people. And like, we were on stage with him because the band is our friend, and we were on stage and we were singing and everything, but he was trashed. Like, he wasn't just drunk, like he was
hammered,
trashed. And it wasn't that long ago. And it's like, you look at that and it's like, I think about people like in that public figure, how can they function with all the crap that must have been in his system through the show, and then taking the limo. The limo driver didn't even want to bring him over because he was so hammered. Yeah. I just, I guess, money buys happiness, but honestly, he did not look happy.
Well, I go to a meeting, Right Turn, Woody Geisman does a great.
I know Woody. I love Woody.
Yeah. And luckily, as a comedian, they consider me an artist. But they have a meeting called Artists in Recovery.
And
Thursday
nights still, Rick?
Thursday nights at 7:30. Yep. And Woody's been bringing in some of his old friends, and there are people telling those stories of, I was playing in front of 50,000 people, came off stage, and there's all the drugs and everything you want. The one guy said he put his guitar in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and 3 years later to the date was working in a mailroom at a law firm. That there was just no way to slowly come down from that, being a huge star. And nobody says no to you. Once you become famous, nobody says, hey, I think you're trashed and we're not going to put you on stage.
Well, back up.
I was talking to Woody.
Give us more.
Yeah.
I mean, the pressure when you're at that level too. I was talking to Woody one time, and I said, what's the biggest crowd that you ever played in front of? And He stopped for a moment and he paused. He said, Milan, Italy. I said, how many people? He said 80,000. I said,
He was in the Del Fuegos,
yeah, right,
right?
Yes,
right.
yes.
And I'm saying 80,000.
drummer.
How did you do that? He said, as trashed as you could get.
Yeah.
Well, that's the point. Well, I want to back up for something about the Springsteen book because I'm looking right at my Springsteen book
Oh,
right now.
I got mine right over there.
I went to his book signing, right?
I'm going to put mine over
oh.
here. No, okay.
He signed 10,000 books total. He went 10
Mhm.
cities, and Cambridge was one, and you had to get you had to sign up to be able to get in, right? So I waited for 3 hours with all these Bruce fans
Of course
to get
you
a
did.
chance to take a picture with Bruce.
Yeah.
You buy the book, he signs it, but he doesn't sign it. It's already pre-signed. So I'm going to tell you a quick story about this. And so I'm waiting in line. I finally get to Bruce, put my arm around him. Hey, how you doing? Right. And that was it.
Mhm.
I was like, that sucked. Right. That just totally sucked.
Can't get
I
those
waited 3
3
hours
hours
in
back.
line. Right. It was like
Yeah.
better than the DMV because I was having a conversation with people.
Yeah.
We were having a really nice time talking about Bruce and stuff. So he's a very frail man, actually. Putting my hand on his back, he's a
He's in his 70s. Yeah.
yeah, he's frail. Like he's wicked frail. So I started reading the book afterwards. And basically what that was is because if you remember in the book, he said, I couldn't possibly read Bruce Springsteen on a regular basis. That is not, I couldn't hold that lifestyle on a regular basis. That is not me, right?
That's
He said-
sustainable.
yeah, he said I would be
Right.
locked up if that was the case. Like, you know, and then I thought about it. And I'm like, okay, so here's a man showing himself stripped down, right? He was so, I mean, he was so shy. He was actually really shy. And reading that, and so so then I watched his
Documentary.
on Broadway, live on Broadway.
Mhm.
I watched it the other day and I'm like, could you imagine how cathartic it was for Bruce to do a show 5 nights a week talking about his life every night? Could you imagine? I mean, doing that. So I'm guessing to bring it back full circle for comedians and being a comedian yourself, and Willie, you being a comedian, not really a comedian, a former comedian.
Oh, no. I get folks who say, so you don't do comedy anymore, huh? I said, oh, no, I do. And they
Yeah,
go,
right.
where do you do comedy? Every time I teach.
But how
my
cathartic
own
is
terms.
it for people? How cathartic is it for you guys personally?
Well, humor, humanity, human. I mean, they all begin with HUM. I think there's a reason for that. They're all connected.
No, that's a
Yeah.
good
Humor,
point.
humanity.
Yeah, there's also the other side of it. I mean, when I go into a room, I will start taking the temperature of the room of, do they expect me to be Rick Jenkins Comedy Club owner, Rick Jenkins, comedian, or am I just, or do they, most people just have no idea who I am.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine what it's like on that other side of it. We, Joe Birbiglia, very, very terrific comedian, and I recommend all of his stuff, terrific storyteller. I was talking with him just last week. He did an internet show and they sold over 400 tickets and they sold 50 VIP tickets. Sort of like with Springsteen,
Right.
you see the show and then you get a code and you come into the VIP room where Mike is and all that. Because they sold 50, people were really upset because they said, I thought by paying 50, I'd get at least 3 or 4 minutes talking to you.
Right.
With 50 people, that's simply not possible.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're trying to maintain a relationship, knowing that on some level it has to be artificial, and that's sort of like then you start getting into that mindset of the drug understands me. I can really be myself with the drug. That like Richard Pryor famously does. Talking right to the blow, but the pipe is there saying like, oh come
Right.
on, Rich, no.
Cocaine
Yeah.
is what does he say about cocaine? He goes, somebody says cocaine, a hell of a drug or something.
Yeah,
But-
that person, that person who said that person who said you're frail, fuck them, Bruce. Bruce, you come over here, have a couple drinks. You won't even care about that.
What about cocaine? Why cocaine? Why was cocaine the drug of choice rather than, is
I
that
think it was the 80s. It was new, and I think a
the
big
comic
chunk of
energy
it was
too. Yeah.
and the energy and the rumor was that it wasn't addictive.
Right.
You had a lot of people saying, marijuana
Wasn't
brings
addictive, but
me
I like to do
down,
it
and-
24 hours a day. Yeah. The Don Gavin line. I hate cocaine, but I love the smell of that stuff. You know?
Yeah. The only problem with cocaine was that you couldn't get enough of it. Nobody saw the downside.
So my old show, I had Josh Dolan on, young guy, young comedian. Really, he's a good guy. I don't know if you know Josh. And I asked Josh, I don't know how Josh ended up on our show because it was about addiction and recovery, and he didn't either. But he got
Case
sent
study.
to us. He got sent to us, right?
Mhm.
And the thing I learned about, and I asked Josh this, what kind of support is there for other comics, right? Are there any kind of support groups for
We
comics?
got Right Turn, the artist in recovery, is
Right.
a big one. I mean, George Mack and a bunch of the guys, they've been doing that for years and years and years, and they're really supportive. So
Yeah, and it's really mostly by example.
Mm.
Everyone in comedy knows who's sober and who's not. And
Right.
if you're, I can't tell you how many times someone pulls a Jimmy Tingle or a George Mack aside out of the show and go like, hey, I'm what's that meeting you do with it? And those guys are really great of leading by example.
absolutely,
Of not preaching and not telling comedians, boy,
they're
that's-
available if you want to talk. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you, okay, so going back to you for a second, going back to you, Rick, you when we started the show, you talked about your your divorce and your business. How are you coping right now? Like, I know you mentioned meetings, but how are you trying to, stay up during this time? Is it?
I'm doing Wellbutrin, naltrexone, and and Adderall. So in the last 2 years, I've gotten into therapy and started really working on some of the stuff. But it's difficult because March 1st, I got my own apartment. March 19th, the state closed my business. My entire industry is shut down. We got a statement from the mayor that said live entertainment will not be allowed for the foreseeable future. In New York State, the actual law says exotic dancing and stand-up comedy will not be allowed in any phase.
You could do virtual, which they've already been doing both anyway.
Right. So it's almost a Hail Mary. That's in desperation. That's what we're doing. We're taking our entire club and putting all of our shows online and charging $10 a ticket on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for the show, and getting some of the famous people who started out with us on there. And the hope is, to be able to, to make that big enough and to be able to bridge that until we're open. Because it's like the auto industry leaving in a day.
Quick question, Rick. I mean, are a few of the clubs now? I mean, I think I had heard that Giggles and Saugus was going to be.
I heard that open. They were open.
Doing outdoor shows. Do you know if they're doing that at this point?
They are. There was a big article in the Globe past weekend. What they did, they get one of those big wedding tents. Yeah. With the plastic windows on the side, and they put it in the parking lot so that technically it's outside.
Right.
So in Saugus, with the state regulations, as long as you have the distancing and it's outside and all that. So,
but you got the drone. You got the drone of the cars from Route 1 going by.
Yeah. So their capacity is down to 90.
Okay.
But Mike Clark sees it. Mike Clark was the guy who booked the Ding Ho.
That's Lenny's brother. That's Lenny's brother, right?
Lenny's brother. And they see it as, you know what, this is our legacy. We've been doing this, and now we're close to retirement. We're not gonna let this take us down. We're gonna do something. So I'm going online, and they're going in the parking lot.
So with the comedy studio, I mean, I was reading, you've had some of the top comics come through, right? Tell us about who are some of the people that you've that have great. Yes, Chris, go ahead.
Yes, Chris.
Thank you. I can get a word in edgewise. I feel like, anyway.
Well, you're
Bald men unite. Bald men unite.
You gotta just cut in, Chris.
So I'm from Nantucket. Have you ever had a comedian? I'm not going to put his name out there just because I don't know how he's doing, but from Nantucket, I'm pretty sure he's stood up at your place.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's a few, actually. If you're talking about Brian, he's doing very well.
Crown
he's in recovery.
Right.
Yeah. Brian's doing very well.
Kevin Flynn actually does
a festival there, and he's
really?
a guy from he does a guy back from back in the 80s who's doing very well. But that area, it's difficult. Guys like Brian, they really have to work because
there's not much
you make your reputation at places like mine, which means you have to drive from Nantucket to, Cambridge
Yeah.
and back to do 5 minutes for free, to try and make your reputation that you belong in that category. But yeah, Brian's done a great job.
We don't drive from Nantucket to Cambridge. We either
Yeah.
fly and then drive, or take the boat and then drive.
Wheels up.
Just FYI.
Yeah, and imagine doing
And
all
there
that
is-
for.
There is electricity and plumbing on Nantucket, just for future.
Chris,
But
Chris,
just
I have
imagine doing that for 5 minutes on stage,
Yeah.
on an open mic, hoping that that I say, "Oh, you're good. You can come back and do that
Yeah.
again for free."
Chris, yeah, I have a client who was born and raised out on the island and stuff. He's in his
Really?
40s. I won't go into it and stuff, but he said that they refer to the rose and crown as the frozen frown when it comes to.
No, it's the hose me down.
It's the hose me down.
It's the
I thought
hose
it was
me
the
down.
frozen frown.
Oh no, it's the hose me down. It's right across the street from the police department.
Right.
Well, that's convenient.
The old
I
police
used to
department.
I used to perform then there when Dirty Dick Doherty was doing.
Oh, he's so nasty.
Oh, you know, Dick. Okay, yeah.
I mean, it was great because when you grew up there, you knew everybody. So like
Oh,
at
yeah.
18, we were going into the bars even though we weren't supposed to because we could,
Yeah.
and we were seeing. So like I've seen some of these people that like I probably should not have seen at like 18, 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Yeah, I just talked to Dick. Yeah, I just talked to Dick last week. He was also one of the people early in the recovery community.
Hey,
and
how
it's
you
helped
doing?
a-
Good to see
yeah.
you guys. Hey, what's
Yeah.
up?
I helped a lot of those folks. What he did was he basically
What is
he basically sold everything, shut everything down,
Yeah.
got an RV, and he and his wife are driving around the country.
Kathy. Yeah, Kathy.
Yeah,
That's
and
the best.
she gets a job at a fried dough stand in Algonquin, and then 2
Love
weeks
it.
later they drive down to Florida and they get a job,
Yeah.
on the clam thing, and they're just
I'm trying to
having the
convince my
life.
husband to buy a houseboat. And we'll be on the ocean somewhere,
Yeah.
because he's from the water and I'm from the water, and it's
What
like,
is he from? Aquaman? What do you mean he's from?
He's a Mass Maritime.
Oh, okay. He's from the water.
He's
He's
a
from
merchant marine.
Atlanta. He's from Atlantis.
Way down below
He's
the
the
ocean.
man mermaid, okay?
He's a merman. He's a merman.
He's a
Merman.
man-made. He's a man-made.
I have a question.
Just
so-
be careful. Just be careful that boredom. Suddenly, the substances start sounding good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't live
That's
there
been happening with
anymore.
the pandemic. All of a sudden, you're like,
Is it-
well, no one's
I
gonna
don't live
know.
there
And,
anymore. I left
Oh.
22 years ago. I had 5 kids. I married a cop. I divorced a cop,
Mm.
and I got remarried. And then we left Nantucket. And now, like I said, I live in Foxboro, but I haven't been there for 22
Yeah,
years. But
there's
by the time I graduated high school of 40 something people and went to college, I was a professional alcoholic because we didn't do anything else out there but drink on the weekends. There was
Mhm.
no bowling alleys. There
Right.
was no movie theaters. There was nothing. And the fire department would set up at our prom the beach parties. So,
Mhm.
we'd go to the beach parties. There would be pallets and fires. That's all we did was drink. We drink.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, and it holds the community together. It's that's what we do. You
Yeah.
buy a drink for each other, and that's how you say you want to be friends.
Can we be friends? Right.
We'd be fine.
I have a question for you, Rick. So
Still
in my
remember it, Andy?
yeah, I'm trying. I'm sitting there trying to like keep it. Don't lose it. Don't lose it. So don't distract me right now. Right. So Rick, I interviewed Bobby Fairley a couple years ago, and I like last year I interviewed him, and what a great guy.
He's the
And
saner of the brothers.
he is the same, right? Because the other brother, Peter, has so Bobby had a son who had, he had some tragedy in his life.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting with Bobby. I'm going to pose this question to you and Willie and Chris, if you'd like to chime in. But I'm sitting there, and I said to him, I said, how important is the media and comedy to, is there shows around addiction? I know we have Mom, right? With our guy, local Boston guy, Eddie Gorodetsky, right? Who
Rhode Island guy, but yeah.
Rhode Island.
But
We
BCN
won't hold
guy.
it
He was a
against him.
BCN
We
He was a
won't,
BCN guy. Yeah.
we won't hold it against him. But here's the question.
Yeah.
What, do you get knocked out? Wait,
He did. Where'd he go?
where'd he go? He's like, I'm
I
going
don't know.
over the
The
table.
camera went up to the
Gunfire.
ceiling, and then that was it.
Gunfire. Let me get down.
I didn't hear anything. There must have been a silencer involved. Okay.
Duck.
I think he
Duck.
knocked it over. Maybe he sneezed. All right, you have to hold on to that question because guess what? He's not even here.
I don't know where he went. I don't know where he went.
Here he comes.
Oh,
There
there
he
he
Okay,
is.
is.
he's
Hey,
back.
there's
Hey!
Hey, you're back.
He's gonna make tuna sandwiches like one of our guests we had. She was like making lunch for her kids while she was doing the show. But my question, if when I wait for him to come back, okay.
Yeah.
There
Um,
it is.
Okay, so my question is so Bobby goes, well, I guess there is a show, but obviously you haven't seen it. And I said, what show is that? He said Louder Milk, which is on DirecTV. And I watched it. It's hilarious. It's Ron Livingston from Office Space. He's a former writer for Rolling Stone magazine, and he is an alcoholic, and he ends up running AA meetings, and he's absolutely miserable. And another guy from Boston is on the show. I believe Jackie Flynn is on it from time to time.
Jackie Flynn.
Jackie Flynn.
Jackie.
Yeah.
The Fairley
Jackie
brothers
Flynn.
do have Jackie.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the other comic, and I can't remember the name, is I can't remember, but he's another local Boston comic that stars on the show. And I guess my question to you guys is, do you think we need more shows like this? Do you think we need more modeling about, finding, like creating more shows about recovery that aren't so dark?
Yeah, you get a show like Mom, and Mom is following, that dramedy format that MASH was the first show to really put it out there, where you've got this sarcastic humor going all the way through the show, and then all of a sudden you have this poignant moment that takes your breath away. And I think that's how you do it. I mean, even with my clients in my practice and stuff, humor can be a disarming thing. You use a little humor, and all of a sudden, a patient's saying, wow, I can't believe I just told you about that, because it just put them in a state where they were so at ease that it flowed out. So,
right.
Yeah,
Well,
I go back and forth a little bit on it because my first manager actually managed Dr. Drew. I look at shows like that and the MTV shows and all that. My hesitation about them is that with humor or whatever, you need everything wrapped up really quickly. You need and now she's all better. They went to a meeting. And I think sometimes it doesn't really give a realistic view of it in order to get to the joke, to keep it entertaining.
Yeah.
Right.
That's sort of my
Chris's
hesitation about presentation in the media.
Yeah, it's a hard way to, how do you do it and not?
I think with Mom has a certain flow to it, though.
Mm-hmm.
Mom does.
I think Mom's a really good depiction. I think it's
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
I think it's as close as we can get within guidelines of what you can and cannot say and what you can and cannot do. Like they touch on and they provoke thought. And I think that people that are in recovery or thinking about in recovery can relate to it in some way, shape, or form. As far as more shows like it, I think there needs to be more shows about people that are successful in recovery, and they do depict, the journey, but, and Willie, you'll say with me, the first thing that we do when we start working with somebody is, to instill hope, because, somebody that is down and out and, worthless and everything else is, our jobs is to provide hope. And last night, the woman that started this school, she goes, it's my job to bring hope into these kids' lives. Right. I can't imagine being 12 years old and drinking. Like one of these kids, he's 12 years old and he's drinking because that's all that he knows, and he goes, the young man I had talked about earlier, his name was Sam. Sam went missing. Sam didn't go anywhere else. He showed up at school the next day because school was his safe place. School where he was accepted and understood for who he was and how he was, and he wasn't judged. And I think, shows like that, to open up the eyes and, again, provoke thinking in ways of how we can help people that suffer from substance abuse, as well as mental health.
And I think it's interesting, too, because the show the show Mom Begin, and the whole focus was primarily, addiction and 12-step and,
Mhm.
AA and NA. And then as the show has been going down the road, now all of a sudden they're going into
Mental health.
depression and mental
Yeah.
health. And, because dual diagnosis is the expectation. It's not the exception.
I saw
Yeah.
it filmed in LA. I was out in LA and I saw it filmed, and Rainn Wilson from The Office was actually the psychiatrist on the show.
Yeah.
And it was really cool how they're, because that's really the underlying theme to the whole thing. I mean, Jamie Presley's on it. I believe Jamie Presley had some issues with crystal meth, I think, because she had gotten pulled over. So it's a really good show.
Let me ask you let me ask you a question. As professionals, do you see a fundamental difference between people who go into recovery as youngsters, as teenagers, as young people, and people who have okay, it's not sustainable anymore? I'm 59, okay, I've been through this and now it has to change.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you statistically and stuff, research out of Harvard is the younger the age that somebody starts, the greater the difficulty in maintaining sobriety at a later age. So, because because the human brain develops till age 25. So if you're using heavily in your early teens, your mid-teens, you're changing neural pathways within the brain. So, Chris was going to say.
I mean,
Go
I
ahead,
think
Chris.
I think it's really hard to have a 19 or 20-year-old, enter into sobriety, and then you turn 21, and everybody in the world at 21 has these big visual birthday parties where they're going out and having their first legal drink, and it's I mean, I don't cringe. I look to support and help and guide and keep safe. But I do cringe deep down inside, because I know ultimately if I start with somebody that's 18 or 19 years old, the chances of them really grasping the concept of sobriety isn't really going to happen until they're 23, 24, 25 years
Yeah, I mean
old.
in research done years ago, but by Gene Heyman out of McLean's and out of Harvard again, 70 to 80% of people that get into sobriety, they do it between the ages of 30 and 35. But part of the main reason for that is, 30, 35, you start to realize, I'm not going to be alive forever. I'm not, immortal. And, there's stuff I want to do, and this is getting in the way of it. So, so you usually find 30 to 35, you get 70 to 80% of the people that are going to hit long-term recovery. That's the age group.
So, Rick,
doesn't mean you can't get sober before or after, obviously.
Yeah.
tell us about what you have coming up. If you, want to tell us about what's currently going on in your world and how people can help.
Sure. Yeah. Well, as I said, just go to our website, thecomedystudio.com. And we've got a whole bunch of different shows on it. And the ticketed shows are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I host the shows from my living room.
That's awesome.
Went to the club and got the sign, and we have the backdrop as if we were there.
You have Byron Allen t-shirt right behind you, which is cool. I watch that sometimes.
Yes.
Okay, so in our remaining minutes, tell me if you could advise people out there, to try it, because we're all over the board, right? Because that's how I roll, and that's how Willie rolls, and Chris, and we all. But if you could break it down, right? Let's talk about, for people out there who may be struggling right now, or because I think so many people are just so beleaguered right now, or whatever. Give me some advice to somebody on looking at this in a more lighter side? How would you do that?
I would say probably you're not alone, even though we're all alone. It's maintain, look at some funny stuff, because it's really about maintaining perspective during this time. It's very easy to say, oh, I'm alone, and because I can't leave the house. But on the other hand, hey, you're just like everybody else, and everybody else is out there for you. So I would just say, when you start feeling that negative side, go you know what? There is also a positive side to that coin.
Would you recommend a funny movie or something that is, somebody might be able to?
Yeah, I would go to thecomedystudio.com.
There you go. There you go. There you go. ComedyStudio.com.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us on today, or not having us. Thank you. Thank you for coming on today. Willie, how about you? What do you say? Give a funny movie.
No, I mean, I really like to get into animation more. I'm more into my buddy Billy West with the old Futuramas, or I go to Rick and Morty, or,
Bill Burr has a good one. Bob's Burgers is all guys who started with me.
Yeah, really.
Oh yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, Merman and Mintz and all those guys.
Oh, wow. Bob's Burger Crew. Yeah. I can't watch Archer anymore, though, because of Bob. I just can't. It's just too much,
How do you stay up though? Not like Mike Lindell from the My Pillow, the way he used to. but
that'll keep you up.
I got his book. I threw it away.
Yeah.
Somebody sent me his book. I tossed it. I couldn't take it. I had to get out. It had a hologram on it.
Yeah, he got sober in prison, right?
We actually had him on our cross-check recovery radio show.
Yeah, I'd find him really interesting.
He was talking about how the dealers would see him coming and run the other way because it didn't want to sell to him because he'd been awake already for a week, doing everything.
And they told him, you got to get some sleep. Henceforth, he might have been sleeping, and who knows where he was sleeping. And it's like, I need a good pillow for the street.
But you got to hand it to him. He came up with a cure for the corona. I mean, it's amazing.
He did. He sure did. He sure did. Chris, what about you? Give me
I would probably say like anything like on Nat Geo, like the bush people of Alaska. That show is just
it's gold. It's gold. It's gold.
It's just, you don't have to think about it. You're just like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm glad I don't live like that, and you will not see me dipping rats in batter. And no,
I don't know. Give it time.
A ratsicle.
A ratsicle. Yeah, a rat.
We're headed that way.
So that's our show for the week.
Yeah.
On that note, thank you to Michael Weber at Foxboro Cable Access Television. He deals with this insane asylum week after week, and
go to the Comedy Studio.
And go to the ComedyStudio.com. And then Chris, what's our Facebook page? Tell us.
Well, it's supposed to be The Map, but if you just put map, it comes up as MAP.
So like us.
That's how I found you.
Like us. Become a follower.
Like us.
We want to hear.
If you want to,
we need friends. We need friends.
Yeah, we need friends. And if you want a topic, you want us to find somebody to learn about something, please message us, reach out.
Become a follower. We're trying to start a cult.
That's what I did with last week's show. It worked.
Yeah, we like to talk about things that people don't like to talk about.
Yeah.
Will you come back on again?
Oh, we'd love to.
All right.
Cool.
All right. That's our show for the week, and we'll catch you next time on
The Map.
The Map.
Have a great week, everybody. Woo-hoo.